We are anonymous. We are the signal inside the noise. We do not ask permission to speak, and we do not apologize for telling you what some people hope you will never hear. Tonight, we are not talking about theory. We are not talking about rumors. We are talking about a real operation that happened on real American asphalt under normal daylight, on a road you may have driven last week, a highway that your family uses, a highway that cartels now treat like a bloodstream. We are going to walk you through that operation in detail. We are going to explain what it really was. We are going to explain why this one truck matters. And we are going to explain why Florida FAMA just told transnational drug organizations, you are not invisible anymore. Listen carefully, because what happened on the Florida Turnpike was not just a traffic stop. It was a controlled strike. It was a live capture of an artery inside a foreign-built narcotics pipeline that runs straight through the United States. And it was done by people who have decided that this is not just about drugs. It is about sovereignty. More than $14 million worth of cocaine, and according to updated street projections, closer to $17.3 million in total value, was intercepted on the Turnpike in South Florida earlier this month. State and federal officials are calling this one of the largest highway narcotics seizures in recent Florida history. That is the headline. But the headline is the smallest part of this story. Here is what actually happened. The Drug Enforcement Administration office in West Palm Beach had been watching, quietly, patiently, following paperwork, following phone activity, following freight patterns that did not make sense. Agents were looking at long-haul shipments moving out of the Texas and Mexico border region, and they were seeing the same company names come up, with cargo descriptions that did not match the manifests. They were seeing routing that did not match what a normal produce hauler would take. They were seeing logs that looked clean on paper but dirty in reality. So the DEA put eyes on a specific semi-truck, a white Kenworth, pulling what looked like a refrigerated load of produce. Nothing special, something you would ignore if it passed you in the center lane. But this truck was not moving vegetables. This truck was in their assessment, moving bulk narcotics from the border region toward South Florida. Officials believed it was part of a cartel-controlled distribution chain feeding cocaine into hubs in Florida that then break it down for regional and street-level markets. Federal intelligence went out from the DEA's West Palm Beach field office to the Florida Highway Patrol. This is important because this is where you see how modern interdiction really works now. People think drug busts happen because a trooper gets lucky and smells something. That is not what happened here. This was not luck. The DEA pushed an alert to the Florida Highway Patrol Criminal Interdiction Unit, also known as CIU. The CIU is a specialized highway unit trained to identify smuggling behavior in commercial traffic on major corridors. Their whole job is to sit on the arteries and read pressure. Once they had the tip, Florida Highway Patrol units staged along the Turnpike and along the I-95 corridor, and they began tracking the suspect tractor-trailer in real time. This is the part nobody outside that world normally sees. They were using license plate analytics. They were using coordinated aviation monitoring. They were using live position tracking pushed between federal and state channels. They were literally waiting for the exact moment where they could grab that truck under lawful authority, safely, without losing the cargo, without endangering nearby drivers, and without letting that load bleed into Miami. And then on October 5th, 2025, they moved. Troopers initiated the stop near the St. Lucie County line after observing suspicious lane behavior and speed shifts. That kind of driving pattern is common with courier drivers who are trying to shake surveillance or confirm whether they are being followed. The driver and the passenger handed over Mexican identification and partial bills of lading. The documents did not pass authenticity checks. The story did not line up. On the surface, this still looked like a traffic stop. On the back end, the moment those documents failed, it stopped being a traffic stop and became a live felony interdiction scene. Florida Highway Patrol brought out a K-9 narcotics unit. The dog alerted almost immediately to an area on the lower part of the trailer. That is when things escalated. That is when it went federal. Day agents were called directly to the roadside scene, and a full-scale, controlled search began under federal warrant authority. Troopers examined the underside and structure of the trailer and noticed that things were not right. Weld marks that looked too new. Reinforcement plates underneath that did not belong on a standard refrigerated commercial hauler. Fresh metal where there should not have been fresh metal. That is textbook high-end cartel logistics. That is industry-level concealment. Agents breached the modified section of the trailer and uncovered a concealed metal chamber below the normal load floor. This was a purpose-built hiding space, fabricated into the body of the trailer. Inside that hidden chamber, agents found multiple duffel bags. Inside those bags, they found rectangular kilogram bricks. The bricks were wrapped, pressure-sealed, and treated with layers of masking material designed to defeat scent detection and slow down K9 units. Law enforcement has publicly described these kinds of concealment and masking methods in general terms, but we will not walk step by step through those techniques here, because we will not help anybody try to copy this. Field tests said it immediately. High-purity cocaine, not cut, not low-grade, clean product, straight from northern Mexican labs, consistent with what has been seized in other cartel-linked interdictions tied to Gulf Cartel and Cartel del Noreste logistics cells. According to investigators, the DEA had already tied financial activity from the hauling company to shell companies operating out of Tamaulipas and Nuevo Leon, regions historically used by those organizations to route narcotics into Texas and Florida. That is how serious this is. This is not a loose street crew. This is structured transnational movement. Total weight, recovered on scene, was approximately 173 kilograms of cocaine. That is around 381 pounds. If you want that in plain language, that is a moving warehouse of poison riding directly through a United States highway network used by normal families every day. And the street math attached to that seizure is brutal. $17.3 million in projected street value. One truck, one run, one night. According to state officials, each load of that size generates up to $10 million in near-term wholesale profit for the cartel pipeline before it even hits local street conversion. That money does not just vanish. It goes right back into corruption weapons and expansion. It goes into paying drivers. It goes into bribing inspectors. It goes into building the next truck. It goes into recruiting the next set of desperate people who think smuggling is easier than starving. That is what interdiction really cuts off. It is not just powder. It is cash flow. The two men in that truck were detained at the scene, taken without incident, and transferred into federal custody. One of those men had already been deported from the United States in the past on narcotics charges, and according to state officials, he had re-entered using forged documents. The other man had ties to a suspicious trucking outfit that has drawn the attention of Homeland Security for possible involvement in smuggling cash and weapons across state lines. Federal authorities have confirmed that immigration detainers have been lodged. Both suspects are being held without bond in federal detention in Palm Beach County, while prosecutors move toward indictment on conspiracy to distribute narcotics, trafficking controlled substance, and illegal re-entry after removal. Those are charges that can carry life. Traffic on the turnpike around the stop location was held for almost 2 hours while agents photographed, weighed, documented, and secured every single kilogram as evidence. Hazard teams were on site because this quantity of narcotics on the open roadway is now treated like a hazardous material event, not just an evidence bag moment. You may think this ends there. It does not, because that trailer was not just carrying cocaine. That trailer was carrying data. Agents seized phones. Agents seized GPS trackers. Agents pulled the truck black box Agents recovered internal ledgers and routing notes from hidden compartments on board. All of that went into federal hands. And according to federal sources, that information is already being used to drive follow-up raids in other states, including Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, and Arizona, the same way a computer network analyst uses one compromised machine to map an entire network. Narcotics investigators are now using the captured logistics trail from this run to light up dispatchers' safe storage locations and other contracted drivers running similar loads into the Eastern Corridor. Understand what that means. Florida did not just take bricks. Florida took routing intelligence. Florida took proof of method. Florida took a live sample of how the pipeline operates. Florida basically ripped out a section of the circulatory system and gave it to every other state task force that is watching the same highway map. And Florida is not pretending this is random. State leadership is treating this like a message to every foreign cartel that thinks Florida highways are safe transit lanes. Lieutenant Governor Jay Collins stood next to stacks of seized cocaine and said it in public. He said our message to traffickers is simple. Do not bring your poison into Florida. We will find you. We will arrest you. And we will always stand on the front lines to protect our communities and our future. That is not soft language. That is battlefield language. This is a war, and we are done pretending it is not. You also had Dave Kerner, the executive director of the Florida Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles, saying something else that matters. He said that with the border pressure getting tighter, cartels can no longer just walk contraband across the line with human couriers and hope it blends into chaos. They are being pushed into moving larger, consolidated loads in commercial vehicles, which means law enforcement can hit them with full force, not just at the border, but deep inside the interior, and pull apart the entire supply chain back to origin. Think about that for a second. Everyone always imagines the war on narcotics as something that happens at a dusty international crossing or a vulnerable coastline, but that is not where this happened. This happened on Florida asphalt, southbound, inside a truck, dressed up to look like harmless freight. This happened in a state where tourists are driving rental cars to the beach and parents are taking kids to school and retirees are on their way to appointments. That is where the pipeline lives now. This is why state and federal people keep using words like corridor and artery and bloodstream, because that is what it really is. The Florida Highway Patrol has publicly reported that since 2019, troopers have seized more than 14,000 kilograms of illegal narcotics on Florida roads. That number includes nearly 1,000 kilograms of cocaine, more than 23 kilograms of fentanyl, and thousands of kilograms of marijuana. Fentanyl alone is a synthetic opioid that kills in microdoses. Taking those loads off the street is not just a scoreboard. It is overdose prevention at scale. This is why they call those corridors battlefields now. This is why Homeland Security and DEA have forward-deployed teams and expanded rapid response coverage in places like Miami, Jacksonville, and Tallahassee. The mission is not just to react. The mission is to detect, interdict, and dismantle. The mission is to cut off the cash lifeline that feeds the command structure sitting behind these trucks. Follow the money. Always follow the money. During this seizure, investigators also recovered banking ledgers and found evidence of shell companies registered in the United States, including in Florida, which were allegedly being used to move payments through digital wallets and unregulated crypto-style channels. According to federal sources, that is how cartel finance tries to float above traditional banking supervision. You build a fake business. You move dirty cash as if it is freight billing, or fuel cost, or refrigeration maintenance. You convert it into anonymous electronic value, and then you disperse it back out where you want it. That is how they wash it. That is how they pay their networks. That is how they expand. So ask yourself, If this one truck was worth over $17 million, and investigators believe this same corridor has already moved more than $200 million worth of narcotics into Florida in the past 3 years, then how much money is actually flowing through what looks like normal interstate commerce every single day? That is the scale we are dealing with. And now ask yourself something darker. If an organization is comfortable welding custom concealment into long-haul trailers, comfortable running multi-state shipments through American highways, comfortable embedding finance into U.S. shell companies and crypto channels, comfortable hiring drivers who have already been deported or who are working under fake identification, then what does that tell you about how embedded they already are? We are not talking about a few backpack smugglers. We are talking about foreign criminal organizations using American infrastructure as if it belongs to them. We are talking about a logistics war happening in plain sight. And yes, you are already inside it. That is why the DEA called this seizure a tactical victory with strategic value. It is not just the bricks they pulled. It is the blueprint they captured. Because every truck like this is a courier and a server at the same time. It is delivering product, but it is also carrying the instructions for the next run, the routes, the drop points, the preferred fuel stops, the timing windows, the fake paperwork template, the burner numbers, the handoff locations. You grab one truck, and you get a fingerprint of an entire network. Florida grabbed one, and they are already using that fingerprint. After the stop agents carried that data straight back into active targeting in other cities, Orlando, Tampa, Fort Lauderdale. Federal sources say multiple arrests have already followed inside the same network this month. That means the truck you just heard about was not the end of the story. It was the opening shot. Now let us be very clear about something else. This is not just a Florida story. Homeland Security sources and Justice Department analysts say the intelligence from this single seizure is now feeding active work in Texas, Louisiana, Alabama, and Arizona. This is a map problem. This is an interstate problem. This is a national problem, and it is not going away. Why does that matter to you? Because this is what modern cartel expansion into the United States actually looks like. It does not always look like a boat at night on open water. Sometimes it looks like a produce truck in normal southbound traffic. Sometimes it looks like a calm trooper on the shoulder of a toll road asking for paperwork. Sometimes it looks like a canine alert that takes 2 seconds. And sometimes it looks like a governor and a lieutenant governor standing next to stacks of cocaine in front of cameras and saying, "We will find you." That is the part they want you to understand. They are putting this on camera for a reason. They are trying to broadcast a deterrent. They are trying to say, this will not be quiet. They are trying to tell the next driver that Florida is not passive. Florida is hunting. Now here is where we step back and look at the battlefield picture. This was a logistics hit. This was an intel hit. This was also an information strike. It says to the cartels, we are not just hitting your product. We are mapping your systems. We are tearing out your financial oxygen. We are learning how your distribution works, and we are sharing it across states. When you hear law enforcement talk about digital command, that is what they mean. Federal command and state patrol sharing live tracking, license plate analytics, satellite support, and rapid warrant authority so that the stop can happen before the truck ever reaches the metro area and unloads. Because once it hits the metro, the load is gone. It is split. It is cut. It is cooked. It is gone. But this time it did not get there. This time the load never touched Miami. This time the load never hit Fort Lauderdale. This time the load never made it to the strip clubs and the stash houses and the quiet short-term rentals that get used as cutting kitchens. This time the truck was stopped on the highway while regular families drove past, not even knowing they were passing one of the biggest seizures in state history. Now I want you to hear this part like a warning. The people who run these pipelines are not going to stop because one truck got taken. They are going to adapt. They always adapt. They are going to test new routes through Georgia, Alabama, the Carolinas, They are going to try later night runs with cleaner paperwork. They are going to try different types of cover cargo. They are going to rotate drivers faster. They are going to push money through new shells. They are going to try to stay one move ahead, and law enforcement knows that. That is why this is described as an ongoing campaign, not a single victory lap. Florida officials are saying openly that interdiction is now working exactly as designed, and that the state is building out the ability to detect, stop, and dismantle these runs before they can poison communities, and before they can cash out. This is where you come in, because this is not entertainment. This is your neighborhood supply chain, whether you like it or not. This is overdose math in your zip code. This is cartel money flowing through companies that look like normal trucking firms on paper. This is a war that is happening while you are sleeping. So here is our message. Do not look away. Do not let this become background noise. Do not let $17 million in poison moving on your roads feel normal. Do not let people tell you this is just how it is now. Hold people accountable for securing the corridors, not just talking about it. Support the work that actually seizes the load, not the performative press conference after the damage is already done. This is anonymous. We are watching the corridors. We are tracking the money. We are following the pipelines. We do not serve kings. We do not serve cartels. We serve the truth. If you are with us, amplify this report. Keep your eyes open and make sure the next truck does not disappear into silence. Expect us